Welcome to America Open for Business, where we talk with high-growth entrepreneurs and leaders who have found success in one of the world's most important markets.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of America Open for Business, where I talk with high-growth entrepreneurs and leaders who have found success in one of the world's most important markets. This episode is brought to you by Your B2B Marketing, a truly global marketing agency. Many mid-market B2B companies face challenges as they enter new markets or expand across borders. So we handle end-to-end marketing from strategy through to execution, allowing our clients to focus on customer growth. Discover how we can drive your expansion by visiting yourb2bmarketing.co. That's .co, not .com. And some of the past guests on the show that we've had include Brian Smith, the founder of the UGG brand, what became $1 billion consumer footwear brand, the famous Australian sheepskin slippers and boots, and Ben Tija, founder and CEO of Earthly Wellness, a $20+ million direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand that is changing healthcare naturally. And today I am absolutely thrilled to welcome onto the show Sue Cornish, who is a serial entrepreneur and visionary with a passion to grow businesses. Sue blends an astute mix of sales skills with 30+ years of management in complex field organizations. And what runs through her career as a common thread is belief in the importance of human capital. So leading by example and understanding the keys to motivating people, Sue builds teams that take ownership of individual roles and collective success. Normally, when I introduce the guests to this show, I'll mention the company they're affiliated with, their title, something like that, but it's not that easy with Sue. So let me start by just welcoming Sue Cornish to the show.
Thanks, Cameron. Thrilled to be here.
Great. Thanks for coming on. Now I'm going to go through the companies that you're involved with, working with currently. Sue is a franchise owner of Jovi. She is an executive advisor to Executive Learning. She is also involved with College Tutors. She's the owner founder of Care Connection, and last but not least, I got it wrong. Let's try it one more time. Pathfinders, College and Career Advisors. So that is a lot to unpack there. Did I forget anything?
You did not. I think you've got them all.
All right, fantastic. So let me start first by asking what common thread, and we'll take a look at some of these different brands and companies that you're involved with and what you're doing, but what's the common thread that runs through all those businesses that I just mentioned?
People. And if you look at each one of them, we are working with humans, whether they are small humans and their parents, all the way up to adults who are running businesses and looking to grow their business through the human capital that they work with. So we sort of look at it, when I look at all of the brands and the leadership team, our theme is cradle to career. And so all of our brands help people become better.
Wow. So let's start at the youngest stage of the life cycle there. Let's go from the bottom up. Tell us how your company, your technology, and what you do would help. I'm in that boat. I have 2 young children. So how would your company, your technology help parents?
So we work with individual parents to assist them with their on-demand childcare needs. Primarily through corporations. So what do I mean by that? So companies that are trying to support that work-life integration and of their employees, where parents are working remote and they need some support sometime during the day. Corporations are stepping up to help fund that childcare need, so that the parents can focus on work during the work day and get that done and still provide and support those children that are in the home.
So this would be working parents that are trying to juggle and balance different things. How would you work with clients, and who are your clients in that picture?
So everything from the Fortune 10 clients that are global in capacity that want that in-home childcare support, the higher ed, for example, your major educational institutions, whether they're providing supports to adult learners and that have children. We do a fair amount of pop-up, is what we call it, where we put on-site childcare when those events are happening, in-home. for corporations that are trying to balance and assist and support the family as opposed to just the employee. We'll provide that on-site care for events, for a award celebration, a weekend trip, award trip, a holiday party or an end of the year party where your employee constituent skews on the younger side, and we have smaller children in the home and not show because there wasn't a childcare support there. Bring them. We create a fun environment for the kiddos while the adults have fun on the same location.
Wow.
So those are just, so it's in the home, on site, really collaborative, pop-ups during those breaks between end of school year and summer camp starting, spring break, winter break, that kind of thing. So we're there to support all of that on-demand need, whether it's on site or in the family's home.
Okay. Does that apply to the Jovi brand?
It does. It does.
Okay.
Care Connection does some of that as well. Care Connection also supports, as you've read in the news, if you've turned on the news in the last 4 years since COVID started, childcare is an issue. And we're seeing more and more daycares struggle to stay afloat. Wages have increased, which I believe they should, but trying to make that business math work for daycares is a struggle. So we have a team of folks that provide coaching and mastermind groups, work through the staffing challenges. We've got staffing challenges everywhere. So it's not unique in the childcare or daycare space, but we support them from a coaching and backup support or substitute support in those daycare centers. And then, those are the two brands that really heavily support that K-8 space, kindergarten, well, 0, newborns to 12 years old, let's say.
So Jovi, you were involved with Jovi as a franchisee first, correct?
That was my first foray into entrepreneurship as myself. I grew up as an in an entrepreneurial family, so it wasn't foreign to me. Actually felt comfortable when I bought my first franchise. Felt like the right thing.
And then you added the Care Connection aspect as a technological solution later?
You got it. Exactly. That came about during COVID to support some of those folks. And then we also have, as with the children age, we've already got that relationship with mom and dad or the parents. And as those children age, those same clients, 10 years ago, were coming back to me saying, hey, we loved the support you gave us. However, now we've got a child in middle school and we need support with geometry, all the way up to AP calculus and ACT and SAT prep. And that's where the College Tutors brand came into play. Same recruiting arm. We primarily recruit younger adults, college-based students. And in the tutoring side, we're looking for that exceptional young person that wants to be a good role model, a mentor. And we're one-on-one pairing them with students to help with that homework help, whether it's mainly subject specific, but some study skills and that kind of thing.
Okay. And as those children are getting older, I suppose it's going to be a little harder to find a specialized, so someone to teach trigonometry is harder to teach basic math, right?
You got it. You got it. We went from reading skills and basic math and a little bit of, other subjects to trig, calc, AP stats, AP chemistry, biology, ACT, SAT. Those do take a different skill set from the tutoring standpoint. Sure.
Okay. So Jovi for let's say the younger age kids through to kids who may need to be babysat on any kind of event, either on site at the company or at a function off site.
Correct.
Care Connection kind of is the app or the platform that can tie that together.
Correct.
Okay. And then you go up to starting to tutor, with both college tutors as well as Pathfinders. Let's look at those two brands. How did the Pathfinders College and Career Advisors company come into the mix?
So So believe it or not, we partnered not too long ago, back in the early fall, with a company that we had engaged with over the last probably 10 years, and rebranded it to Pathfinders College and Career Advisors. And so it's been a great partnership of that organization and our organization. They've got the know-how, the expertise in coaching families and students on that college admissions process. But they really start with, or we now start with, helping that student determine what that career is going to look like, and really do that exploration prior to even looking at colleges that might be a good fit for them. And so that partnership's really come about. They, like I said, they've got the expertise, we've got the marketing expertise and the relationships with families. So it was an easy brand to fold into the mix to promote that support. And really what we do in the Pathfinders brand is work with that student and their parents on identifying what that career path may look like, and sending them out to do some heavy lifting and research and observations. And once they've narrowed it down, then we start looking at schools that would be a right fit for them. And Aaron, our founder of that business, hones in on the fact that, the average college student is in college roughly over 6 years, roughly 6.2 years to get an undergraduate degree that should 4 years. So if you think about the amount of money that's spent in those extra 2 years, if we make the right decision on the career path before entering, they're more likely to graduate in 4 years or less. So it's a great business model that folds right in with what, the clientele that we've worked with since the time they were infants. So and that's how that started. And, we also look at it today, which is why we rebranded from it was all about college before. But, when you look at some of the professions that don't take a 4-year degree, that still are highly rewarding and financially young people or adults can knock it out of the park financially, we're helping those people make decisions as to what path do they want to go, because there's no reason to spend 4 years in an education and then come out and join a labor union where they're going to help train you anyway. Let's bypass that 4 years and start earning money right now. So we do hone in on, it's not, today it's not just about college. What is the career path? And then what's the right education path to get you to that career?
So you might even at the end of a consultation with a client, they may advise, maybe college is not the path for you. Maybe that's not the road you want to go down. That's fascinating.
Yes. Yeah. And that's changed. If you think about 20 years ago, the path for everyone, starting in middle school and high school, they were pushing more and more students to go to college. And that's put us in the labor shortage that we have today when it comes to trades. Find a plumber, find a really good HVAC person that you're not begging to come help. We need more of those folks. And, I tell everyone the story. I've got 2 nephews. One's got a 5-year degree in engineering, and the other went the trades path. And I ask everyone, I'm like, engineer versus an electrical high voltage lineman, who's happier overwhelmingly, and who's making more money.
Wow.
It's a toss up. Taking the educated one a fair amount of time to catch up. So they're equal, but they're totally different paths, and both doing quite well in their chosen professions. One educated, one through the trades, through, a union apprenticeship. And we need to really dig into that more, I believe, today than we have in the past 20 years.
Particularly when you factor in the cost of the other nephew going to college for 4 or 5 years. He's starting behind. He's starting now, what, $150K behind just on day one of his first job.
Exactly. Well, more than that, because they paid out the 150 plus the lost wages.
Sure.
So if you take the lost wages of the one that didn't go to college and started an apprenticeship and started earning on day one, that math's more like 500,000.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you want to make the right decision. I'm not saying don't go to college, but if we're going to go to college and then go into some sort of a labor-based position, let's bypass it. Let's make the right decision for that young person. They can hit the ground running, and that's what Pathfinders does. And we're coaching and consulting, no different than we are with Care Connection and all of the other business lines there. And if you think about the spend, you said it yourself, 150,000 in college. When you bought your first house, did you hire a realtor to help?
Yes.
Exactly. College is $150,000 spend that most people embark on their own without support and guidance. And that's what Pathfinders does. They're there to, if we're going to equate it to a real estate agent, they're there to support and coach.
So would you work also with or in conjunction through high school guidance counselors, people at the schools?
We do partner with the schools when that family's really wanting, to do a deeper dive. And we're there to support the guidance counselors. They have sometimes 600 students they're supporting.
Right.
It's hard to work one-on-one. We like to have students enter that coaching engagement sometime towards the end of their sophomore year.
Okay.
And we're not finished with them until they have signed acceptance papers to the college of their choice in their senior year. So right now, they're getting those letters and starting to make commitments, and that will happen through June of their senior year. So we're working with students for well over 2 years to prepare them for, stepping foot on on a college campus or entering the workforce.
So that's the end-to-end process, not just the hard part. I think would be picking your career interest when you're 15, 16. What do I want to do when I'm 30, 40? That's hard enough. But then all the logistical stuff, the deadlines, the essays, the SATs, all of that is part of your package.
Yeah, exactly. And the college choice is the most important one. So what we train to is, and what was fascinating to me when I first learned this, that let's say here in the state of Ohio, a student decides they want to go into marketing. So the University of Cincinnati will start down there. They have a marketing program that's part of the business program. That marketing program is heavily skewed towards brand management because of Procter & Gamble being in Cincinnati.
Okay, makes sense.
You come an hour and a half north to Columbus for Ohio State, they too have a marketing program. That marketing program is heavily skewed towards logistics because Columbus and the central Ohio area are very logistics based. Now, you go up to Akron University, and for whatever reason, they are more design and graphic marketing based. Okay. So a student and a family choosing a school I'm going to marketing, all marketing is the same. And they get to Ohio State and it's heavily data analytics marketing. And they're thinking they're going to be designing great, brands and, doing graphics. And they're wondering why it's not a good fit. They're wondering why marketing isn't right. Well, it was school, the university, and the environment that they chose that was wrong, not necessarily the major. So we fold in all that education as to what are you looking for out of that career, and what does that mean to you? Because then we're going to help you find the university that is the best fit and the smartest buy.
Who do you think of as your client in that scenario? Is it the parent, the family, the child himself?
Both. So the quick answer is yes. We like to have the parents involved because they've got to be there to support it. We like them for at least the first couple sessions. And we also want them when the student is doing that career exploration, the student's not going to be able to find people to follow. or to observe or to intern with in between their junior and senior year, parents have to help that. So we want the parents engaged in the process so they know how to support the process. And so they're there to better understand, because if dad decides I'm a Miami of Ohio alum and my child is going there as well, and it doesn't have a program to support, we've got to get dad over that hump as well, that we want the child to be successful when their first choice, not go to Miami of Ohio. I'm not picking on Miami of Ohio. It's a great school. But if they're making the wrong program choice, and then ultimately 2 years in, switch to a university that's a better fit for them, they got another 4 years to go. So getting the parents to better understand what the process is today versus 20 years ago when they entered school and the university programs, it's just changed. More and more students are in, it's more competitive. Ohio State being a backup school for many parents because they had a stretch school. Today, Ohio State is a stretch school for many students in many programs. Not all, but in many programs. So the whole mind shift has to change. And that focus, for a student, we need to explain to the parents that, hey, your student needs to, in high school, get engaged in extracurriculars. However, let's not go a mile wide and do every extracurricular. Universities and employers are looking for a little more leadership. So once they've identified what programs they want to engage in, whether it's theater or journalism or sports, we urge them and coach them to work towards a leadership position of some way so that they can demonstrate their strengths and their leadership abilities. It's a learning, and universities want to see that learning early on.
So better to have one or two key leadership roles, captain of the volleyball team, editor of the paper, than an inch deep, a mile wide, doing a whole bunch of different things.
Exactly.
Okay. And has that changed too? Because you're working with parents, they're giving you advice from when they were in high school 20, 30 years ago. Those things are changing all the time. So are there any hurdles you have to navigate in that context?
We do. The parents that say, I want my child involved in everything because that's what I did. And, they laugh about the fact that, yes, you did it and you're in every club and every team sport in the yearbook. But you were less likely to demonstrate the ability to lead, the ability to, manage peers. And those are skills that, are easier formed when there are parents. And that's what we say to them is, hey, mom and dad, you're there to catch them. Let them fail early on. And that is something that universities and employers, we're employers of young people. And if I had one criticism of Cameron, our age group, is we don't let our children fail enough when there's a big old safety net to catch them. And then when they get out into the real world and they're on their own, they don't know how to internalize that failure.
So that's what they said about the helicopter parenting generation, where bosses were getting calls on the second week of work. What's wrong with Johnny's performance? You shouldn't call your kid's boss to talk about how they're doing.
I would think we wouldn't have to tell them that, but I've taken those calls myself as an employer, and had to remind the parents that you're the parent, we're their employer, and it's illegal for us to talk to you. However, that happens because we're not releasing them to fail, and to stumble when they're younger, and there's a great support system to pick them up, and they learn from those things. We all do.
Yeah. And then there's a parenting approach to that too. I can't remember the book right now, but it's essentially let your kids fail now when the stakes are relatively low. It goes for high school, college, early in career. Make a mistake on your first or second job rather than 20 years into your career when it's a multi-million-dollar mistake you're making.
Exactly. And harder to recover, emotionally, as a result of that, because we haven't built up those battle scars. So all of that is what Pathfinders, college and career advisors are there to help with.
Mhm.
And then because of my love of helping people and the just the nuances of working with young and learning, and I stumbled back, gosh, probably in 2015 on a tool
Mhm.
because I like everyone, and I was hiring and growing that first business,
Mhm.
and wondering 90 to 120 days in why that person that I hired wasn't performing the way I expected them to, and I
Mhm.
could not figure it out. And that brought to our portfolio of offerings the Culture Index and
Mhm.
executive learning. And the
Mhm.
executive learning brand is there to coach companies and leaders, young leaders, older leaders, how to make better hiring decisions.
Mhm.
And more importantly, how to use the data that we provide to communicate better with their employees, better understand where their team is coming at a challenge,
Mhm.
uh, and what to recognize as just a trait that they possess versus how they're feeling about their work. So that's been a great add to what we do in partnering with businesses when when we're all talking about, gosh, it wasn't a great fit, and now I'm refilling a role. How do we eliminate some of those issues?
Mhm.
It could be
Mhm.
a great hire and just we didn't onboard them properly. We didn't train
Mhm.
them the way they need to be trained. And we didn't put them into quite the right role. Great
Mhm.
person. How do we
Mhm.
fix that so we can retain that employee? And the time and energy they've put into learning our organization and fitting into the culture. That's what executive education and the Culture Index does.
So, do you feel that too many people would say, or have the sentiment of, I don't really know my hiring and how to decide. I just have a gut feeling about someone that feels like the right person to me. We're going to hire them. Is that a common sentiment?
Boy, did I do that all the time. And like I
Hmm.
said, I had that gut instinct that they were a good person.
Yeah.
And they are generally good people. Um, but good people put into the wrong roles are not fulfilled.
Mm.
So, our tagline is analytics over instincts.
Mm.
And you know, the educational um, advice and guidance and coaching that we give using that tool helps leaders make better hiring decisions and
And
better promotional decisions.
so the message there must be this tool, it's a methodology, it's a process. It might be an investment you're making, but 2x, 3x pays for itself from bad hires that you're avoiding.
Oh, absolutely. If you take a salesperson, you've hired a salesperson, and your top
Hmm.
salesperson brings in 10 million, for example, and
Hmm.
your bottom salesperson brings in 1.5 million. So the delta there is $8.5 million from a good hire to your worst hire.
Hmm.
And so not only the cost of the turnover, the
Hmm.
lost opportunities. So when we talk about helping businesses grow, that's often where we can bring in the most impact. It's in that hiring that right salesperson that's
Hmm.
going to be a good culture fit and is hungry and self-motivated to go out and help grow your business.
Hmm. So I've gone through the program before. I'm a huge advocate of the value of it, and it's fascinating to me how short the actual survey is. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Sure, sure. So it's 2 questions, and it is free form adjectives. Both questions have the exact same adjectives. The first question is roughly about who you are naturally. And then the second question is about how do you show up to work?
Hmm.
And that's it. It's as simple as that. And that helps. Once we've got that back, that helps me advise and coach our
Hmm.
clients, mainly leadership teams and supervisors, around the person that they're interviewing or considering promoting, or maybe struggling with on the team that they're not feeling like they fit in. And it's generally on both sides.
Hmm.
The employee or the peer doesn't feel they it's a good fit and the leader doesn't feel it's a good fit. So how do we fix that? And there might be an opening right down the hallway in another department where we can save that person who we've already invested, so not talking about the $8.5 million delta, just the cost of, you're roughly, by the time you've hired, onboarded, lost opportunity, and the person that's training them, you're roughly 50 grand just to get them past the onboarding stage and a little bit of training. So losing them after that is lighting money on fire.
And then the ongoing part, that's at the beginning. What happens, I don't know, 6 months in, a year down the road, how does the program integrate with the team at that point?
So I recommend that we do regular reviews of the surveys, and that helps us with many things. One, how do they feel about the work they're doing today? How do they feel about potentially management and, how they're being led? Are they being micromanaged a little bit? Are they feeling stressed because the company is growing and they just had a big acquisition and things are in flux? Well, we can look at that and start to identify some key topics to have discussions with the person. And it's better than saying, hey, Cameron, how are you feeling today? Because your response is going to be fine. Even though you're going through chaos and, the company's laying off or adding people and, there's flux on job duties and whatnot, you're not feeling fine. We often internalize that everybody's feeling the same way. Not necessarily the case. So, we can take those milestones and start to refine duties and, gaps in the business. Hey, do we have somebody that's a really good, strong doer? And we need exact data from this department in order to fix it. Who do we have on the team that can do that? We might have to teach them the hard skills, but they've got the traits to do the job well. It's just going to take some training, and we'll be pleased as leaders with the outcome.
So it's easier to train, I mean, not easy, but easier to train skills and specific job roles than it is to change things like attitude and behavior, those kinds of elements.
Absolutely. I believe so. I mean, now if we're hiring for a CFO, we're certainly not going to take somebody, from necessarily an HR department or the marketing department and move them up. There's a lot of education that needs to be included there. But, if it's a task or a project, we want to put the right person in to handle that. And we can teach them generally easier than, taking someone like me that doesn't have a really strong follow through and putting us into a data analytics role. It's not going to be a good fit. I'm not going to be happy. And you're not going to get the outcome you were hoping for.
Yeah. So we've looked at these handful of companies here, obviously, brought together by human capital, optimizing that human capital, getting the most out of your workers, but also doing in a way that's going to be career and growth, long-term oriented. One thing that I notice is that maybe not so much with Culture Index, but the other brands, there's an aspect of a marketplace there. Just like Uber and Lyft, you have to have passengers, but you also have to have drivers. It's just not going to work, at least not yet.
That's exactly it.
Right. So
absolutely.
Is that part of your outreach and your messaging for both sides? Let's just take the tutoring businesses, for instance. You need both to make it work.
You absolutely do. So we do an awful lot of recruiting, awful lot of hiring. The magic's in the match. Maybe less so in an Uber. I just want the person to be safe and have a good driving record and have a moderately decent car and clean car, as opposed to a tutor who has to have the hard skills. If I'm looking for a biology tutor, this person needs to excel at it and have a good enough personality to connect with the young person they're tutoring. And then the student has to want to learn. The tutor can't open up the brain and dump it in. We have to have a willing participant on the other side, wanting to, get better grades and work harder to achieve and not be frustrated. Oftentimes the students we work with in the college tutors brand, They're smart, they're good students. They just aren't connecting with the subject matter for whatever reason. Missed some core foundation at some point, don't connect with the teacher as well as they do other teachers, and they need that support to get them over the hump. And then we see the grades go straight up. And it's nice to, for young people, it feels good when we're successful. For us, heck, we're fulfilled when we're successful. Why would we expect our young people, to grind it out when we can get a little bit of help? And if we can teach them that skill to be willing and able to receive help at a younger age, when they get to the adult issues, they're more apt to raise a hand and say, can somebody help me here? As opposed to struggling through it for hours, feeling as though they're failing, or putting effort where it shouldn't be placed, and it's not as productive. So let's teach them early.
Wow. And those, all the skills are there, are things you want for a good leader of a business unit, a department, maybe a company anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? I love it. I keep saying to people, I'm just waiting for my first family that had infants, multiples, to turn and say, okay, our children are ready to go through college prep with you through Pathfinders and then become an employee. And, we have a robust internship program that we hire into our businesses from. And, that's the best place to find young people, talented young people, is you work with them as college interns and you see the diamonds. And that's fun. So you're taking them all, even internally, we're taking them all the way through the process.
Oh, wow. So you could coach them up to apply for college, get their internship. They come back and help out as a tutor or any other kind of a care provider.
Right. You got it. Or marketing intern or what have you. And then all of a sudden they're a full-time employee for us.
Wow. How is it now? We're how far past COVID? I lost track. 3 or 4 years after COVID. You have a very human capital intensive business. How are things going these days with getting people into roles?
Culture. It's back to culture. It is not easy. I'm right there out with everyone. Wages have increased. We have to be willing to, support the increases in wages. Not sure I see them going back down, nor do I think they should. We've got to start to agree that we're going to pay people a living wage. So it's a challenge. Work ethic is a challenge, on the flip side, we're paying folks, and, you really do want them to want to work and want to be productive. And more than actually finding them that, want to be at all ages. I mean, I can't say the 21-year-old is any different than the 54-year-old in certain circumstances. We need people that want to work. I could go way down a political path with you. I won't. But there's groups of population that come and want to work. We should give them the opportunities and help support them so they can go to work, because we need those people.
That's what's so interesting about your business is what you do. Like with us, marketing can be done almost anywhere, almost anywhere in the world. I can find someone to do what I need to get done, but yours is at certain time and certain place. There's always going to be a need for in-person support, physically being there, and there's no replacement for that yet.
No replacement. We can't babysit via Zoom. And nor do we ever expect that to be. I think during COVID, some folks tried. Parents were home and put them in front of a screen for another couple hours. And, is that best? I mean, we're in front of a screen a long, long time in our lives. Let's support and promote the activities that, use some muscles too. So it's a challenge.
What do you find most rewarding about what you're doing?
Oh gosh, you know what? I love the people. I wouldn't be in the people business if I didn't love the people. And it's about my team, my administrative team, and watching them learn and grow and gain their voice to where, they're willing and able and confident in what they're doing and confident in growing in their leadership skills, that's what keeps me motivated.
Mm-hmm. Because you're not just helping, I think of the different levels of people that you're helping. You're providing an employment and a job for somebody. You're allowing someone to work at their maximum capacity rather than, both working and keeping one eye on their child is on an iPad or something. You're allowing a young person to get the maximum out of their career potential. And then finally with the culture index concept to maximize that fit between employer and employee. So that must be on all those levels incredibly beneficial.
So much fun. It really is. And I've gotten to a stage in my career that a lot of what I do, even with my own team, is coaching. So we're coaching it at many levels. We might call it tutoring. We might call it this. We might call it that. And then, because of my age and my time served in business, I'm now getting the opportunity to coach other companies, leaderships, teams, and how to look at growing their own teams and maximizing them, which is super fun.
Who are the posters on your wall for the coaching Hall of Fame?
Oh gosh. Jack Welch. If you think about that person, my dad, quite honestly, but if you think of Lee Iacocca and Jack Welch, and, I know I'm staying in heavy manufacturing, but, those are two that come to mind from years gone by that just were able to build teams that got shit done.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the biggest misstep that companies make with how they treat employees?
Oh, good question. How they treat employees. Depends on the size of the team. But and I'm not going to say the companies are missing it, but I'm scratching my head and wondering how all of this remote workforce, whether we're doing a justice or an injustice to our younger employees. Because when I think back to my younger days, having that mentor, having someone there to help and to guide and to learn from and even to listen to, if you're in a work environment and you heard someone having a conversation, I would gain so much value out of those moments that maybe I wasn't even involved in. And now we've got so many people working remotely, those of us that are older that have already had that mentoring, it's not as big of a deal to us. But what are we doing to the younger generation? And are we doing them a disservice because they're having to figure it out the hard way? And that takes way longer. And will they? So it's just a question I've got. I'm not sure I know the answer, and I know that that's a polarizing conversation, remote work versus, in person. But my team went entirely remote. We talk a lot, but I also can't hear what they're saying on the phone once we get off. And could I be course correcting and coaching them to be more effective and more fulfilled in their role? Because if you get off a call with a client or a prospect and you're frustrated every single time because you're hitting the same roadblock, but no one knows it, and you're not problem solving through it, how successful are you going to be? So it's just, I think that's one of the things that the verdict is out on.
Definitely.
How's that going to impact us?
I think that about a lot with coaching, like just to take salespeople as one example, but the informal nature of you can literally sit and you could in the olden days sit and watch someone do a sales call. You can watch how they're interacting with the person on the other side of the phone. Instantly, right after, pull them aside and give them some feedback right on the spot. That is so much harder these days, and a lot more impractical, and it doesn't happen as much.
I was just going to say, does it happen? Or do we just scratch our heads on what they're doing? And, and when you do ask those questions, it's their perception and they're engaged in the conversation. So is their perception reality?
Yeah.
Now there's some decent AI tools, and we could go down that path that listen to sales calls and can help a salesperson understand how much they're talking versus how much the prospect's talking, and where they miss buying signals. And, that we're going to have to make some healthy investments in those types of tools as a business society, if we're not back in the office enough to support it. And I'm not saying the younger people, I'm saying, the folks that should be mentoring, they can work from home. I feel like they get more done at home, but they're not building succession plans. They're not helping the business in the long run.
Yeah, there's no question there's trade-offs to the whole approach. And I've been working remotely largely for the last decade plus, and we get together with my team a few times a year, but it's just not the same. And I think about people who are now early 20s. They may have finished college during COVID. They didn't even have a graduation. Their last couple of years were remote. And then their first job is like that too. And so it's becoming, it seems normal to them.
Yes.
How you start, at least I had that foundation at the beginning of my career for the bulk of it, and how different that is, and how much now feedback is by device, Zoom calls like this, whatever it may be. It's just not the same. Not that there's one that's better than the other. Also, I think, people our age, we're used to how it used to be. So it's hard. I find it hard to adjust to training and mentoring people in my team now.
Right. And I'm not sure we know the outcome. Yeah. When you say we're not that one's better than the other, I don't know the answer. I don't know what the outcome will be. I've got friends that have children that, didn't have a graduation, went into their first job, essentially in their parents' basement, and haven't really been in an office ever. Friends that, one of their children works in New York City, but the company is on the West Coast. So they work from noon to 8 because that's when the work environment happens. So it's just different, and we'll see, I guess, is the ultimate outcome. They'll figure it out. Now, we do have more resources today than you and I had. They can, look on the internet and get an answer, or an intranet and get an answer. We did not have that as a resource. But that nuance of listening to that conversation and helping coach and guide.
Yeah.
Isn't there? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you one last question. And that is, when you were inducted a long way in the future, inducted into the Human Capital Hall of Fame, what do you want? They want them to say about you at the induction speech. What's your legacy?
I wish I'd have gotten prepped for this one so I could have given it more thought. I guess that, that visionary person that really dug in to try to figure out how to fulfill folks and make a difference so that they can be the best person they want to be. And I think we have a long way to go there.
Okay.
Fun challenges, though.
All right. Well, this has been Sue Cornish and I'm going to list them all. Here we go. Doing my best. Franchise owner of Jovi, executive advisor with Executive Learning, one of the partners of Pathfinders College and Career Advisors, college tutors, as well as founder of Care Connection, and for joining us today on the podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today. This has been America Open for Business. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Cameron. It's been fun.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the America Open for Business podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.